BingX, a trusted global crypto exchange. Trade spot, futures, or copy top traders easily. Sign up via the link or referral code to get 30 USDT instantly, plus up to 1,500 USDT in bonuses for verification, deposit, and trading.
Australian humanitarian Madeleine Habib has been released from an Israeli detention facility, marking an end to a 4-day ordeal following the interception of a Gaza-bound aid vessel she captained. The ship, part of a larger humanitarian flotilla aiming to deliver much-needed supplies to the besieged Palestinian territory, was apprehended by the Israeli military in international waters. Sources close to Emis. Habib confirmed her release on Sunday morning, Israel time, alongside fellow activists from the Freedom Flotilla. They were subsequently escorted to the Jordanian border. This incident marks the 8th instance of an Australian national travelling on a humanitarian flotilla to Gaza being detained by Israeli authorities, only to be released thereafter. Ms. Habib, an accomplished mariner and dedicated humanitarian activist with a long history of advocating for those in need, was taken into custody on October 8 and held at Israel's Ketziat prison. Her detention stemmed from allegations of illegally seeking to break Israel's naval blockade on Gaza. Australian consular officials made contact with Ms. Habib the day after her arrest and were reportedly informed that she could face indefinite detention in Israel unless she agreed to sign a waiver. Ms. Habib, however, had consistently refused to sign the document. It is understood through Guardian Australia's reporting that this waiver would have required detainees to formally acknowledge their attempt to circumvent Israel's naval blockade on Gaza. As of Sunday, it remained unclear whether Ms. Habib ultimately signed the waiver prior to her release. Reports from previous flotilla detentions indicate that at least one activist who initially refused to sign was eventually released. During her time in custody, Ms. Habib conveyed to Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade (DFAT) officials that while she experienced degradation but no physical abuse, her access to sustenance was limited to stale bread and her drinking water was described as brown. The Ketziat prison, situated in the Negev Desert, is a high-security facility predominantly used for the detention of Palestinian security prisoners, many of whom Israel accuses of affiliations with militant or terrorist organizations. Earlier on Sunday, a DFAT spokesperson issued a statement asserting that the department had raised concerns regarding the treatment and welfare of detained Australians with Israeli officials in both Tel Aviv and Canberra. The spokesperson acknowledged the widespread desire to assist the people of Gaza, stating, "We understand that people want to help deliver aid to those suffering in Gaza. We also want to see critical aid delivered." The statement also reiterated a long-standing warning against attempts to breach the naval blockade, strongly advising Australian citizens against participating in such actions due to inherent safety risks. The DFAT reiterated its call for Israel to ensure the sustained and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Ms. Habib's vessel, the Conscience, embarked on its journey from Italy in early October, reportedly carrying approximately 100 volunteers, including medical professionals and journalists, along with essential aid supplies. The interception occurred just days before the announcement of a ceasefire deal brokered by former U.S. President Donald Trump. The Conscience was one of 9 ships comprising the flotilla, all of which were intercepted in the early hours of Wednesday morning. On Sunday, a significant wave of pro-Palestine demonstrations swept across Australia, with tens of thousands participating in rallies nationwide. In Sydney, organizers voiced their commitment to continuing their protests until aid organizations are granted access to Gaza and the territory undergoes reconstruction. Surya McEwen, a passenger on the earlier Sumud flotilla who recently returned to Australia following her detention by Israel, expressed a firm resolve among flotilla activists to persist in their efforts to deliver aid by sea. McEwen stated that these efforts would continue as long as there is a situation where there's a brutal and illegal blockade on Gaza. Efforts to solicit comments from the Israeli embassy in Australia and the Israeli government regarding Ms. Habib's detention and subsequent release were ongoing as of Sunday. The situation underscores the ongoing international scrutiny and humanitarian concerns surrounding the Gaza crisis and the efforts to deliver aid to its population. The release of Ms. Habib, while a personal relief, highlights the complex geopolitical tensions and the profound challenges faced by individuals attempting to provide humanitarian assistance to Gaza amidst a protracted conflict and blockade. The actions of the Israeli military in intercepting the flotilla and detaining its participants have drawn international attention, raising questions about maritime law, humanitarian rights, and the effectiveness of international aid efforts in such volatile environments. The consistent refusal by some activists to sign waivers, despite the potential for prolonged detention, speaks volumes about their unwavering commitment to their humanitarian mission and their opposition to the blockade. The experiences shared by Ms. Habib, detailing the conditions of her detention, paint a stark picture of the realities faced by those who challenge the established maritime restrictions. The DFAT's engagement with Israeli authorities reflects the diplomatic efforts undertaken to protect the welfare of its citizens abroad, even as it navigates the delicate balance of international relations and humanitarian advocacy. The broader context of widespread public demonstrations across Australia signifies the deep-seated concern among the populace regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the perceived barriers to aid delivery. The resolve expressed by flotilla participants like Surya McEwen demonstrates a long-term commitment to addressing the crisis, signaling that attempts to deliver aid by sea are likely to continue despite the risks and setbacks encountered. The global community remains closely watching these developments, as the struggle to provide unimpeded humanitarian access to Gaza continues to be a central point of contention and a focal point for international concern and action. The narrative of Madeleine Habib's release is but one chapter in a much larger story of advocacy, resistance, and the persistent quest for humanitarian aid in a region marked by conflict and blockade. The